Everybody and their mother is naming their choice for starting quarterback at Ohio State. Everybody but Ryan Day and his staff. We're going to explore what's going on at Columbus, Ohio. And, oh, by the way, the spring football game is back on. That's new. Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hit that free subscribe button while you're watching so you don't miss a single episode. So today, the Buckeyes, new starting quarterback, we'll work through it and what's really going on here, plus the Juju Watkins injury. Oh, that was awful for USC. Plus, we'll have our power rankings, the biggest Big Ten basketball stories of this past week. It's been crazy. We'll get to all of it. But first, Ryan Day likes a good old-fashioned, drawn-out quarterback battle before he names an official starting quarterback each and every season. But we haven't even finished spring ball yet, and everybody around the program is talking like this thing's a done deal, and that redshirt freshman quarterback Julian Sayin is the guy, period. Now, especially guys that have been around the program and are leaving, they feel a little more free to speak, like cornerback Denzel Burke. He says Julian Sayin is the guy, to be honest with you, quote unquote. And even quarterback Will Howard, who's moving on, he just led the Buckeyes to a national championship. He says it's Sayin's time. Everybody seems to know this. Everybody's talking about it, except for Ryan Day, just not quite yet. And I've always been fascinated by the Buckeyes quarterback room. It's always full. It's always full of 5 stars. Not everybody gets their chance to shine and to play in Columbus, Ohio, because there's just so many good ones. They just keep recruiting them, and the best man wins, and other people leave. I mean, even Joe Burrow had to transfer out to find some playing time at LSU, where he went undefeated and won a national championship. He's a great NFL quarterback now. But even guys like that can't even find space sometimes at Ohio State. It's absolutely crazy. That's just how good it is. And while I'm continuing to be fascinated by the quarterback room, I mean, this goes on every year. Like 2 years ago, Kyle McCord battled Devin Brown all summer into week 2 of the regular season, if you remember it, before McCord landed the job. And then at the end of that season, McCord was kicked to the curb. And of course, he landed at Syracuse, had a pretty good year. And then this past year, Will Howard comes in and he beat out Devin Brown. 2 years in a row, Devin Brown didn't quite get the job. Devin Brown was a pretty highly recruited quarterback back in the day. And Will Howard won the national championship, and so it worked out for the Buckeyes. So while all this was going on, we got 2 other 5-star freshman recruits working behind the scenes. Julian Sayin transferring in from Alabama when Nick Saban retired, despite the fact that there was already a 5-star in place in Aaron Nolan ready to go. So they were behind the scenes for a year battling out. And quick recap to date, Julian Sayin appears to be taking over. Aaron Nolan saw the writing on the wall. He left. He's at South Carolina now. Devin Brown losing out on the starting job 2 years in a row. Knew he wasn't going to beat out Julian Sayin, so he left. He's out at Cal. Lincoln Kienholz, he's still there. You know, he was highly recruited out of high school. He's kind of like, I don't know if I could say he's the Joe Burrow type, but he just can't find his way into the lineup. I don't know if he's that good or not. He was highly recruited, and he just hasn't had a chance to shine in that depth chart. Through necessity, he had to play in the Cotton Bowl a year and a half ago. And he's a junior already. I mean, his time is going by. And I would expect this quarterback situation to play out here in the spring. And I would expect him to probably decide to exit stage left and go somewhere else in the spring portal out of Ohio State. That's what I think. I don't know that for a fact. That's just what I think. And by the way, on top of all this, There's another 5-star waiting in the wings in freshman Tavian St. Clair. Again, loaded. Not enough room for everybody. That's just the way it goes at Ohio State. It's an embarrassment of riches with the Buckeyes. But despite what all the other people and all the other Buckeyes and everybody around the program are saying about Sayin, quarterback coach Billy Fessler says that the team is nowhere near close to naming a starter at this point. And I could tell you that Ryan Day won't even consider answering the question right now. Ryan Day likes the process. And even if Sayin ends up taking all the first team snaps throughout the spring, he likes that. I doubt very much he would name a starter. He likes to name a starter about a week to 10 days before the start of the season, where you get ready for game week and game prep for your first opponent, which will be Texas this year. And I think that's probably what Ryan Day is going to do. You won't hear him name a starter until mid to late August, when it's ready to go, and because he likes to keep everybody on edge and keep that competition level at every position, including quarterback, everybody on their toes and ready to go and giving their best each and every day. Also got a sign in the quarterbacks room. He wants the quarterbacks to be the hardest workers on that football team, and that kind of set the tone for everybody else. So that's what Ryan Day does. Everybody else can say, oh, Julian Sayin's definitely the guy or whatever, and he may be, and I think he will be. But nothing official is going to take place till the end of summer. But you and I both know he's going to be the starting quarterback when this is all said and done. Hey, speaking of spring football, game on for Ohio State. How about this? It seemed Ryan Day and the Buckeyes were not going to have the traditional spring game this year. And instead, it was going to be some sort of spring showcase, whatever that means. Day was cautious about playing another game on the heels of a 16-game season where they ran through the playoffs and on their way to a national championship. Apparently, Day has changed his mind, or somebody changed it for him. I don't know. They're going to have an official spring game, just like always, April 12th. Mark your calendars for that. He says now that it's just too important to pass up simulating game reps and simulating a game day experience for his players ahead of the season opener versus Texas, August 30th. Now, I will say, Ryan Day did always leave himself a little wiggle room on a final decision on the spring game. So, and I agree with him on a bunch of different levels here. You know, again, other coaches have been very concerned about putting spring players on display for poachers who might tamper with them into the spring transfer portal. There's always the risk of injury. That's always present. By the way, Day says that he shares those concerns, and a handful of players will not play in the spring game. Just a small handful, he says, regarding the spring game. Don't want to get anybody hurt. And he did say, though, although most players will definitely play. I'm curious to see how he handles superstar wide receiver Jeremiah Smith. Does Smith get touches in a spring game, or is he one that they sit out so that he doesn't get hurt? You want to protect the guy, but you also want to see him get a few reps with Julian Sayin and the quarterback to wide receiver connection. And you can also do that, I think, to some extent in practice. I would be surprised if Jeremiah Smith plays. That's just me. I don't know that. I'll be curious to find out on April 12th. And, I think at the end of the day, I'm glad Day is doing this and having the game, because when you open up against Akron, no offense to Akron, that's one thing, but when you open up against Texas ready to go, you don't want that to be your first game day experience for a bunch of kids on the team and first stadium game day experience. So let them get a feel for it here in the spring. I think that's the right move here. We'd love your thoughts on it, Buckeye fans. Let me know. Hit me up on YouTube with the comments in the comment section. And by the way, that's not all that's planned for the Buckeyes. 2 days after their spring game, the defending national champions will visit the White House to celebrate their accomplishment. Ryan Day says it's an honor to be invited, and he remembers growing up watching championship teams go to the White House as a kid. Also keep in mind, Vice President J.D. Vance is an Ohio State graduate and a fan of the team. Hey, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, and that way you'll never miss an episode of Locked On Big Ten. And for you early commuters out there, you want to jump start on the day? We have our audio-only version of this podcast that comes out 2 hours earlier than the YouTube video version that many of you are watching right now. And you can download that wherever you get your podcasts. So feel free to check that out. If you, Apple, Spotify, whatever, right there, 2 hours earlier, first thing in the morning for the audio only version. And don't forget, we have our website, talkbig10.com, where all of our podcasts go, and you can buy merchandise from your favorite team. If you're a Buckeyes fan, you want a Buckeyes shirt or pennant or hat or jacket, you can get it right there on our website with all of our podcasts there. So check that out at talkbig10.com. And don't forget us on Twitter, X, at talkbig10 as well. All right, still lots to do that I want to get to here on this podcast. And a sad day. Earlier this week, Juju Watkins on Monday night, a devastating injury, putting a huge damper on USC's season for the Lady Trojans in the NCAA tournament and women's basketball in general. It was a devastating day. We'll have that, and then later on, our power rankings. That's all coming up here next on Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. Supply House, you got to get in on this. You get supplies that you need for your job site. If you work in the skilled trades, Supply House is where you need to go. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product information to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts, from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. And if you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service people that will just a real live person you can talk to to help you out there. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage of this. So now it's your turn to do it. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com, supplyhouse.com. Thanks for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day. You everydayers out there, thank you. Meanwhile, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten. And don't forget the audio-only version as well, out 2 hours earlier in the morning. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, right there. And we have our website, talkbig10.com, podcasts and merchandise right there. We'll talk about USC women's basketball here. Their star, Juju Watkins, suffered a torn ACL on her right knee during the Trojans' second-round NCAA tournament win over Mississippi State on Monday night to advance to the Sweet 16. USC will advance without Watkins as her season is done. She will need surgery. She'll probably be out most of next year, if not all of next year. Her injury occurred just 5 minutes into the game while she was driving by a couple of defenders on her way to the basket. She was fouled, and her knee buckled and she crumpled to the ground and had to be carried to the locker room. Not a dirty foul, just kind of a standard foul, going to the basket hard. And unfortunately, she was hurt. She was, she had just taken the mantle of the sport really from Caitlin Clark, as it's the biggest star in women's basketball. In fact, by the way, she is ahead of Clark and her record-setting pace of scoring after 2 years of basketball. She has more points after 2 years than Clark did after her 2 years. Watkins is a contender for National Player of the Year. She's already an Associated Press All-American and averaged almost 25 points a game with 7 rebounds and 3.5 assists per game. It's just a sad story. It's very upsetting. In men's basketball, the Indianapolis Star is speculating about Indiana basketball coach Darian DeVries, who was hired last week, and who's going to be on his new staff. Outgoing coach Mike Woodson had one of the largest staffs in the country, and DeVries will be afforded the same opportunity as Indiana offers one of the largest salary pools for assistant coaches in college basketball. And he also carried a large coaching staff at West Virginia as well before coming to Indiana. He had 5 assistants there. But DeVries is not going to announce any of his new staff yet until he can announce the whole staff in its entirety all at once. So we don't know, really. I haven't heard anything about who's coming with him over there other than his son, who's a pretty good basketball player. As far as scheduling goes for the Hoosiers, they're going to face Marquette and Kentucky next year in non-conference games. They may add Louisville, which would be at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis if they put that on the docket. Now, on to the Hoosiers' arch rival, Purdue. The Boilermakers getting ready for the Sweet 16. And apparently all this national exposure is leading to more lucrative name, image, and likeness deals for players like Braden Smith. He just signed a new deal with Stanley Tumbler Coolers, and he has a name, image, and likeness valuation of about $1.9 million. Doing all right. Averaging 16 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 8.5 assists per game. Kind of makes the Boilermakers go. The Boilers face number 1 seed Houston on Friday night. Very good defensive team. So we'll see how that goes. That's in Indianapolis, though. Nice advantage for the Boilermakers in that game. Other games, Sweet 16, Michigan State, of course, taking on Ole Miss. Spartans head coach Tom Izzo looks to pass Jim Boeheim, 4th place all-time, most wins in the NCAA tournament. This is also Izzo's 16th Sweet 16 appearance at Michigan State. Pretty good. Over 3 decades right there. Michigan will face Auburn on Friday. This is Dusty May's first year as the head coach of the Wolverines. Nice turnaround from last year's 8-win team. And the Terps will take on number 1 seed Florida Thursday night. So 3 of the 4 Big Ten teams of the Sweet 16 are Friday. The Terps, though, play on Thursday night against Florida. The women's Sweet 16 resumes on Friday. Maryland takes on defending national champion South Carolina. Ole Miss will play top seed UCLA. And on Saturday, top seeded USC without Juju will face Kansas State. They'll miss Juju Watkins. In an update from a podcast that we did several weeks ago featuring the health of Michigan safety Rod Moore, if we can go back to football for a minute, Michigan coach Jerome Moore spoke to the media after spring practice to update everybody on a few items, including the health of his 5th-year defensive back. After missing every game last season, Moore has not practiced yet this spring. We told you this was going to be the case. Martindale gave some information a couple weeks ago that we did here on this podcast. He's still not really able to run, or he's not comfortable running, and not sure about his ability for this spring. I don't think he's going to practice at all here in the spring, according to Jerome Moore. And again, Wink Martindale gave us a clue about that as well. But Jerome Moore is confident that Rod Moore will be ready to go in the fall. We'll see. Moore injured his knee before spring ball last year, about a year ago. That was just shortly after winning a national championship with the Wolverines. If he can get healthy again, he definitely is a strong NFL prospect. Michigan's annual Maize and Blue game is scheduled for Saturday, April 19th. Noon Eastern at the Big House. Will be televised on the Big Ten Network. And finally, other news, the Maryland Terps, Mike Loxley, just named longtime NFL assistant Ted Monachino as their new defensive coordinator, just as the team began spring practice yesterday, Tuesday. He's a former defensive coordinator of the Colts and was a defensive line coach the past 2 years for Mac Brown's North Carolina Tar Heels. Then when that staff departed and Bill Belichick came in, all those guys were looking for jobs. So that's the latest basketball and football around the Big Ten. All right, coming up, it's the middle of the week. We like to power rank things. And so we're going to power rank the biggest basketball stories, men's and women's, just in the last few days, the last week, involving Big Ten teams. It's been crazy. A lot of good stuff going on, some bad stuff. We'll rank it. We'll power rank it. That's all coming up next right here on Locked On Big Ten. I'll tell you about Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and you wonder, hey, man, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, you lose track of this stuff. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, although it can do that. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, your investments, your spending all in one place. And you stop just managing your money, you start building wealth. And it's very easy to use. It'll point out, hey, you're spending too much money on this, like food delivery, or too many subscriptions here, all that kind of stuff. And instead of juggling multiple apps and paying this on this day of this month and so on and so forth, bring it all together with Monarch. You can check your finances, track your spending, and even long-term goals. And you can manage with your partner, your spouse. I'll put everything right into one place. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Again, at monarchmoney.com.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, back here on Locked On Big Ten. We always do a feature at the end of our podcast. Mondays, we do my top 10 Big Ten observations from the week. Tuesdays, we do Tuesday tweets. Wednesdays, we like to power rank stuff. Thursdays, we look ahead to the Big Ten Network and point out some highlights on the weekend schedule, whether it be classics, live action, that kind of stuff. Friday, we like to make our picks and our predictions and point spreads and all that good stuff. Right now, we're going to power rank the Big Ten basketball storylines, men's and women's, from the last week. We'll put it on full screen. If you're one of those on our audio-only podcasts, we'll describe it in detail. We've got the list up here right now, and we start off with the number one story this week. All of a sudden now is, sadly, Juju Watkins' season-ending injury with the USC Trojans, as they have had a very legitimate chance of winning a national championship. Look, either USC or UCLA. We're going to be able to fight the South Carolina Gamecocks and UConn and all that. They were going to be in the mix. Going to be tough without Juju Watkins, a player that made everything go, high-volume person as far as touching the ball, getting things in motion, shooting, assists, all that. Very sad to see Juju Watkins go down. That was our number one story. Number two was Maryland's Derek Queen with the buzzer beater against Colorado State to get into the Sweet 16, the last play of the game. Put that at number two. At number three, Tom Izzo, Michigan State, his 16th Sweet 16. I think that's very cool. Age 70 now. Wonder how much longer he's going to go. And he's accomplished everything. So we'll keep an eye on him. We'll see how the Spartans do here in the Sweet 16. And number four, I'm going to put Dusty May and Michigan getting into the Sweet 16. And congratulations to them for doing that. And this was an 8-win team last year. So I think that's a big story. And number five, the USC women, before Juju Watkins got hurt, that point total against UNC Greensboro, beating them by 46 points, 71-25. Greensboro only hit 7 shots the entire game. Are you kidding me? UCLA Lauren Betts, 30 points and 14 rebound effort versus Richmond to get to the Sweet 16. At number 7, Purdue's Trey Kaufman-Wren, just a stat filler, 22 points, 15 rebounds in the win over McNeese. Also, at number 8, got Wisconsin's John Tonje. What a wonderful season he had. They had that close loss. Not a lot of close losses in March Madness, but this was one of them. Had a game-tying shot but missed it late. He had 37 points, first player to crack 30 points in the NCAA tournament. They lose to BYU. And then at number 9, I put Charles Barkley. If you missed this story, this made my top 10 list of storylines involving the Big Ten. This goes back to Friday. Charles Barkley, the TNT crew, they're doing the studio thing. And Friday night, come on a commercial break. Ernie Johnson tosses it to Charles Barkley. So, what are your thoughts on this Illinois Xavier game? And Barkley stumbled for just a moment. He said, I'm gonna be on. I'm not gonna lie. I really didn't watch that first half of that game. I was watching Michigan State and Bryant. I don't have anything to say on Illinois Xavier. Go ahead and give this one to Clark Kellogg. Hey, at least he's honest, right? And then finally, the coaching hires. Darian DeVries at Indiana, Ben McCollum at Iowa, and Nico Medved at Minnesota. So those are my top 10 rankings of stories in the Big Ten. Let me know what you think about that. Pretty interesting week around the Big Ten for sure. Hey, there are many ways for you to interact with me on this podcast. Don't forget Twitter or X, Talk Big 10, number 10. Don't forget our website, talkbig10.com. That's also the number 10, talkbig10.com. All of our podcasts and merchandise to your favorite Big Ten schools, all right there, all 18 of them right there if you want to get yourself some school spirit and buy something there. Also, be sure to subscribe for free so you never miss a single episode. And don't forget, you early morning commuters, our audio-only podcasts on Apple and Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, that actually gets released 2 hours earlier in the morning, in the wee hours of the morning, if you want to jump on that. The rest of you, of course, can continue to watch on YouTube our video each and every day in the morning as well when that comes out. And while you're at it, go back and catch yesterday's podcast here. We looked a little deeper at the 4 Big Ten teams in the Sweet 16. We also did a second podcast yesterday about the pressure cooker that James Franklin is under at Penn State. Nittany Lion fans, go back and check that out. That's in yesterday's podcast as well. Check it out for a second listen. Tomorrow, we're going to do a deeper look into the USC Trojan football program. Their recruiting is through the roof, but they're also hemorrhaging players in the transfer portal. So very, very interesting. We will explore what's in store for Lincoln Riley and the Trojans. And for another listen, it's March. We have Locked On College Basketball. Our friends Isaac Shade and Andy Patton working hard every single day. Check them out as well. You can find them on Locked On College Basketball on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. That'll do it for us here today. Thanks again for checking us out. Spread the word. Tell your friends about us. Subscribe, share, follow. Tell your friends that we're here. If they're Big Ten fans, friends, alum, we're here every day talking about all 18 Big Ten teams with news, analysis, and opinion all under one umbrella here on Locked On Big Ten. For Locked On Big Ten, I'm Craig Sheeman. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks for checking us out.